Welcome to Cinecynics.
I'm Mark.
I'm Craig.
And coming up, a review of Evil Dead, an inherently evil remake that probably should have stayed dead. This past Thursday, Roger Ebert, arguably the most influential, most well-respected, most well-loved movie critic of our time, passed away after a decade-long battle with cancer. This truly is a dark day for movies. His loss will be felt immeasurably throughout the entire movie industry. It is truly the end of an era, and the face of cinema will forever change from now on.
Yes, we've lost a wonderfully insightful movie critic, and I remember in the afternoon on Saturdays watching him to see what was coming out and what I should go see. He was just so good at telling you what was good and what was bad about the movie, and I learned so much about my own movie criticism and about filmmaking in general. I don't know who I'm going to trust anymore with these movies. And I just loved the enjoyment and the passion he had for his job. And I think that came through with every single episode, with every single article he's ever written. And I will truly miss him. I will definitely start watching a lot of the older episodes of Ebert and Roper, and even Siskel and Ebert.
For as many movie critics as there have been over the last 40 years, when you wanted an opinion on a movie, Roger Ebert's was the one that you went to first and the one that you most trusted. He inspired not only generations of movie critics that followed after him, but generations of moviegoers as well. He taught us to never be content with movies that deliver to us the same tired old things over and over again, but to truly appreciate cinema which breaks new ground and dares to do new things, while at the same time rightfully scorning those movies which insult us as viewers by offering up nothing but empty experiences. Roger Ebert loved movies. This was not only the secret to his success, but also the legacy and secret that he leaves to us as movie viewers, to like movies and to like them in like-minded company. His was a level of perception and insight the like of which we won't see again for a very, very long time. And though this exact sentiment has been repeated by more than a few outlets already, I can't personally think of a better send-off, farewell, or way to express my personal appreciation of him than to say, "See you at the movies, Roger."
So it's looking more and more unlikely that Nolan and Bale will actually be involved with the Justice League movie. This has just been reported by Latino Review, and I don't know. I don't think that Nolan is the right man to do the JLA movie, because it's a big, expansive universe, and his Batman is too gritty and realistic for him to actually bring a very comic book feel to this big ensemble piece. I don't know. I guess I kind of just don't care about this project whatsoever, because it's been in development hell for years, so I'm kind of just thinking it's gonna die.
Even though Latino Review reported a month ago that this was a possibility of Bale and Nolan returning for the Justice League movie, I always felt as a fan that it was probably just too good to be true, and now that's looking to be the case. I would have loved to have seen them return personally. I don't think there's been a more definitive version of Batman than the one that Nolan and Bale have given us, and I could only think it'd be a good thing, honestly, to see a return of that incorporated to the Justice League. But it really seems like they have no vision for this project, and Nolan doesn't want to be a part of it because it seems that whatever they want to do would somehow adversely affect the legacy of his Dark Knight trilogy. So I don't really fault him for backing off, and honestly, if they do get this off the ground, it just really looks like this is going to be some kind of knockoff of Marvel's Avengers, and if that's all they're going to do, I'd rather not see it. The trailer for Only God Forgives, directed by Nicholas Winding Refn, starring Ryan Gosling, has just been released. Not much about the plot of this movie has been revealed, and the trailer doesn't do much to fill us in, but I have to say I'm really looking forward to this, especially after Drive, which was an amazing movie, and I'm happy to see them collaborating again so soon.
Yeah, I definitely appreciated the cinematography in this trailer. It was very gritty, but it also had it was juxtaposed by the flashy neon lights of Malaysia, and from what I can tell about the trailer, that I think it has to do with some sort of crime syndicate in Malaysia, and Ryan Gosling is probably like a strong arm man or something like that.
Something, an enforcer,
And
a strong arm.
there was some really beautiful cinematography. I think that's probably what stood out to me the most of this trailer, and I'm looking forward to it. I love Drive, and I love the cinematography in that as well, so I wouldn't expect anything less from this movie.
Evil Dead, a remake of Sam Raimi's cult horror classic, directed by Fede Alvarez, stars Jane Levy, Shiloh Fernandez, and Lou Taylor Pucci. When a group of 5 friends go away to an old family cabin in the woods, they stumble upon a grisly mystery and an ancient tome which, unknown to them, has the power to summon demons from the underworld. Like virtually every other horror movie over the last decade or more, the main problem I had with Evil Dead was I felt that it just wasn't scary. It relied mostly on cheap jump scares and its over-the-top gore value rather than presenting anything that would psychologically challenge you or make you feel unsettled.
Yeah, it definitely relied too much on the gore, and there was a lot of scenes with either mutilation or self-mutilation, and yeah, it just kind of was gore porn. And I know a lot of people are like, no, this isn't a torture porn. It's like, but when you put that much mutilation into a movie, it's kind of turning that corner into torture porn.
I know that, the original Evil Dead was a very over-the-top movie like that, and this being the remake, I guess they tried to strike a similar tone, but I really felt that this one was really struggling to find a singular identity, because there were a lot of elements of that over-the-top quality where you felt like it was getting into sort of that campiness, but at the same time, there was also, with the overall plot of the movie, the way that they changed the characters and the way that this develops, that there was a certain level of seriousness. And
too much seriousness.
Yeah, and so when you're trying to have all this over-the-top horror sequences, but at the same time trying to offer something serious in terms of the characters and development, I just think that it really clashes, and in the end it's very incoherent.
Yeah, I didn't really like the acting too much in this movie either. I think Lou Taylor Pucci was probably the best actor, and he just got shitted on in this movie. he was in such bad shape by the end of this movie. It was terrible because he had nothing, and I really consider him to be one of the better young adult talents out there in Hollywood right now. And this movie was just not good in the acting department at all. The main characters you felt nothing for.
Yeah.
They didn't deliver any emotion to the characters. They're like, okay, she used to be a drug addict. She's trying to get off drugs, and they're going to this cabin to go cold turkey to get her off of the drugs or whatever. Good plot, bad execution.
It is a horror movie, and you don't necessarily go to a horror movie for Academy Award-winning performances, but even still, there's nothing really to keep you invested in the movie. And again, I think is part of this problem where you have competing identities for the core of the film, because you have all this over the top quality, and yet they're trying to establish these somewhat serious characters, and in that way they have it deviating from the plot of the original movie. As Craig just said, we're making the lead character a girl, and the whole center focus of this movie being that they take her to this cabin to try to, to stage this intervention and get her off drugs. But I mean, kind of, what's that all about? I mean, it kind of ended up feeling like like an hour and a half PSA, like, don't do drugs.
Because you'll get possessed by demons.
If you do drugs, your friends will take you to a spooky cabin in the woods where you'll find a book that will release demons and you'll die. So don't do drugs or you'll die.
So one thing that I think we both can agree on, that it was actually shot really nice, and I think it had a pretty good directorial style towards it. I mean, it definitely did have a style.
It had high production values. Especially since they claim most of the effects were done practically.
There were some things in there that were CG, though, and that you can tell were CG. I'm going to say 98% of this movie was done practically.
It was definitely a very watchable movie, and especially if you're a real die-hard horror fan, or
just I think a die-hard Evil Dead fan. You're not going to enjoy most of the movie if you don't understand what happened in the previous original.
Although I have heard that the consensus among diehard fans of the original isn't exactly so uniform. Some like it a lot better than others. But again, I feel that when there's no underlying component that makes you afraid at that psychological level, and you're watching, this repetitive visions of blood and dismemberment and, what have you for an hour and a half long, it actually does kind of get a little bit boring after a while.
It got pretty tiresome, yeah. And not only that, but just when you listen to these people talking to each other, it didn't sound very realistic either, which again goes back to the tone of the movie, which was kind of muddled.
Yeah.
And some of it was corny like it would be in the original movies, and then some of it was so serious that it really didn't feel like it fit in the movie at all.
Yeah, and again, if they were channeling that, that B horror movie, that B gory horror movie of the late 70s and 80s, they succeeded in doing that. But yet, you didn't feel that this was all that they were trying to do. But yet, in the end, it didn't really feel like it offered up anything original anyway. And, they, again, going back a little bit to the plot, they made a girl the lead. But they really underutilized her. So if they were trying to make some kind of statement of, strong...
Because she was possessed most of the time.
Yeah, I mean, if they're trying to make some statement about strong female lead characters, I don't think they really did much justice in that, because there was no progression.
Yeah, because there was no progression, and then by the towards the end of the movie, she becomes a more stronger character. But how?
Yeah,
makes no sense. She didn't go through any struggle. She was possessed the whole time.
Despite all its flaws, the movie does succeed in one way. And that is, it makes me want to check out the original Evil Dead series, not only to see what all the hype was about, but just for comparison as well. Because I really am getting fed up with the horror movies that come out these days, and I think that Hollywood needs to really try harder and to stop giving us these torture porns as a replacement for movies by people like John Carpenter and others.
Yeah, I really think the only person that can actually be up there with The Exorcist, and I'm not saying at the same level, I'm saying it's like here, is James Wan. He directed Insidious, and that disturbed me for a little bit. I had an overwhelming sense of fear while watching that movie, and that is what you're supposed to capture in a movie. And I think he's the only director and writer that has captured that in the past 20 years. So go see Insidious instead. So even though this movie had really great cinematography and style, it was definitely style over substance. And I'd have to agree that this movie really didn't have anything going for it except the gore and some really poorly executed jump scares. And I don't know. I'm on the fence about this because I want to recommend it just for people who are fans of The Evil Dead. But if you are not and you want to get into it, this is not the movie to go into. So I'm not going to recommend it for people who are just a regular moviegoer. But this will be definitely something for people to watch that are fans of the Evil Dead series.
I definitely wouldn't say go to the theater and see this. It's watchable enough that it might be worth a rent, especially if you're a fan of the Evil Dead series or a diehard fan of horror. But if you're neither, you could probably just skip this one. If you enjoyed CineCynics, like, comment, and subscribe.
And follow us also on Twitter, Facebook, and Blogspot.
Be sure to check back every Saturday and throughout the week for more movie news, recommendations, and reviews.
And our question for you this week is, how has Roger Ebert's life influenced you in the way you appreciate cinema?